Hello and welcome to Out of State DMing. Uh, I'm your host, lluksblackheart. Uh, Last week we discussed the my brain stopped working. Um, Weapons in D&D. This week we'll be starting to talk about some other equipment as armor. There's, as you can see, there's a lot of information for armor. Cost, the bonus, max dex bonus, dex for dexterity, and it goes into how that works there. Armor check penalties, arcane spell failure, speed penalties, and weight. All of these are important and should be noted. Because if you can't afford armor, you have to go for cheaper armor, and there's a lot of people that will spend a bunch of their starting coin on armor, realizing that in order to get the equipment they want and or need, they have to downgrade their armor. So just with the weapons, the more expensive armor doesn't necessarily mean the best armor, and I'll give you several examples when I get to it. Armor/shield bonus is the overall bonus the piece of equipment actually gives you. High, it's generally good, but there's also something else besides money. There's something else you have to look at for armor is maximum dex bonus. If you have a high dex build, cheaper armor is better because it lets you utilize a lot more of your AC. And when I start giving the different examples, you'll be able to see some of the differences. There's some people like, well, there's no difference if I use this armor over this armor. When it's like, you save money. So starting out, saving money is great. Great. Doesn't mean you get to actually spread it out and get more stuff. But max dex and armor bonus should be taken into account for what equipment you're getting. Because some equipment benefits low dex characters while other ones high dex characters. And I will state this now because this has come up as a misconception. The maximum dex bonus only applies to AC. It does not limit whether or not a character gets to use that amount of dex for attack rolls, reflex saving rolls, or skills. So don't let that fool you. It's only for AC. It's armor check penalty you have to worry about. Armor check penalty, and yes, there's shields that have it, where the skills that are affected by armor check penalty to suffer whatever the penalty is. And if you're non-proficient in that armor, it does give the armor check penalty does apply to strength-based and dexterity-based abilities, skill checks. The penalties for non-proficient armor stack with the penalties for non-proficient shields, so they all stack. And like I said, it hinders your attack rolls. So when we get into some penalties, it will show like you may want this really awesome armor the party just acquired, but if you're not proficient, you could end up boning yourself. Sleeping with armor is something that can't normally be done. Does a character who sleeps in medium or heavy armor is automatically fatigued the next day, which means a -2 penalty on all strength and dexterity, and can't charge or run. Sleeping in light armor does not cause fatigue. That is a lot of things a lot of people misinterpret because they assume you can't sleep in armor, period. But character states here, it's like you can sleep in light armor, so that's another reason why light armor is good. Arcane spell failure chance only applies to arcane casters. So your bards, your wizards, your sorcerers, your divine casters don't stress it because they're divine casters. So your druids, your rangers, your paladins, your clerics, they don't do arcane magic, so therefore they do not suffer the penalties for it. That's why you can see paladins running up in full plate and still casting spells. Clerics in the background going healed while being decked out in the best armor imaginable. Speed is pretty self-explanatory. A bunch of the armors, mainly the heavy ones, you move a lot slower. And there's the only way around that is for either picking the right class to give you boost, which defeats the purpose of doing heavy armor because that stuff doesn't work in heavy armor, or going with a magical with any and all magical items that just increase your speed. So there is an actual penalty for trying to be heavier, trying to be the tank, is you're not moving as fast. Yes, you do have to account for weight, because all characters have a maximum amount of weight they can carry, and armor is no exception. Just because you're wearing it doesn't mean you need to. Doesn't mean you get to ignore it. There is some DMs out there that are like, no, you're wearing it, I'm not going to hold it against you, even though it's like, even in real life, just because you're wearing an article, when wearing something doesn't mean you get to ignore the weight. But now we can actually start getting into the armor itself. As you can see, there's a nice array of armor. 4 light, 4 medium, 4 heavy, and a bundle of shields. Now you can see that light armor is generally across the board the cheapest, with the cheapest being 5 gold, with the most expensive being 100. Well, then like medium armor, cheapest is 15, and most expensive is 200. So if you're proficient in a lot of armor and you're trying to save money, look at your dexterity bonus, look at the bonus of the armor, look at the armor check penalty, and also see if it actually slows you down or not, because a lot of people like to skip over that fact. Is they go, I have a base speed of 30. You're wearing breastplate. Your base speed may be 30, but you actually only get to use 20 of your movement speed because it reduces your speed by 10. If you're a dwarf or a gnome or a halfling, pretty much the small races, it drops it by 5. So it's like you can't actually get away with that, around that, because, well, you're moving slower because of the bulkier of the armor. And when I said about paying attention to the armor bonus and the dex bonus, is correctly said here, because for instance, even though it's that's late game, not early game, a character that has like a +8 dexterity bonus, if you want to get away with using all of that for your AC, which, yes, this applies to all your AC. The only AC that you're going to end up suffering from is flat-foot AC. So you're worried about being got flat-foot, but your touch AC and your base AC wearing padded armor would be a 19 if you had a +8. But if you've got full plate, the numbers are switched to where you're stressing your touch AC because you only get to use one of your decks, so you're only going to have like an 11. But when it comes to your flat foot, you now have an 18, which means if you're caught with your pants down, voila, you're solid hit, with your overall being a 19. So that's a great way to look at the comparison between what you can afford and what your actual abilities are. Because if you're going for a high dex build, it's generally on the cheaper end, probably going to be best to go for armor that accommodates your high dex. And there is special material and stuff that can be used to increase the dexterity of a piece of armor, but that's like mithril. That's not cheap, and that's something that, unless the DM's just handing it out, you're not going to get it early game. You're going to get it later in the game through saving money and buying it, or getting lucky and finding it. Another thing to look at is the armor check penalties. Padded and leather armor have no penalties, and studded and chain have the best out of all of them because studded is only -1, the chain shirt is only -2, while everything else is 3. I mean, goes to 3, then a pair of 4s, a 5, a pair of 7s, and a pair of 6s. So those easily eat lot of a bunch of skills like your hide, move silent, jump, swim, climb, tumble. So there's an array of skills that it does hit, and if you're not proficient in that armor, that not only penalizes your skills, but it reduces your attack bonus. So, like for instance, if the party gets lucky early on and a suit of chainmail gets popped up, and the party member that isn't proficient with medium armor gets it, he gets the benefit of having the +5 to AC, the +2 dex bonus, but then he has to look at the fact that it has a 30% chance of spell failure. That's important because the main people who can't use or aren't proficient medium armor are your bards, your sorcerers, your wizards, your rogues, your barbarians, and your monks. So several of those are arcane casters, so there's a chance that 30% of the time their spells auto-fail. Your speed drops by 20, and there's a chance that you're not necessarily have a high dex because 40 pounds. Chainmail weighs a lot. That can easily eat a portion of your carrying capacity. But you also then have to look at that -5 armor check penalty. If you're not proficient, your attack just dropped by a whole lot. So there's a lot of people who don't pay attention to that, think that they're just going to wear it for a while and be all well and done, but then they end up going, well, crud muffins, this kind of blows. I'm taking a huge minus to my base attack. And like even with shields, like for instance, the tower shield. I love and hate the tower shield. It has the best armor rating for shields, which is +2. But unlike all the other shields, it has a max dexterity bonus of +2. So if you're going for a dex build, don't use the tower shield because it stops you on 2. It also has a -10 armor check penalty. Now, paladins and fighters are the only people who are automatically proficient with tower shields, meaning anyone else who picks it up suffers a -10 to the attack rolls. And since all the things apply, so for instance, let's say like, you're not proficient with the tower shield or heavy armor, and you got yourself split mail. Well, split mail is a -7, tower shield's a -10. Now you not only have a -17 to a lot of skills, you have a -17 to your attack roll, which means good luck hitting anything. Have I seen people do that? Yes. I've seen lots of people mismatch things that they're not proficient with, thinking it's only going to affect skills, and when you go over what it actually affects and how negative it affects them, they get argumentative and combative when it's like, dude, it's right here. I'm not going to forego it because you want to try to cheese the system. Not to mention the fact that there is still an arcane failure chance with shields, and tower shields have a 50%, which is a lot worse than any other piece of armor. There's like split mail has a 40, half plate has a 40, so it has that one piece of equipment outdoes it there. And the thing a lot of people don't think of is they assume they only need to do the roll once. Is because there's multiple ways to do the arcane failure chance. That you're supposed to do it for the armor you're wearing and if you have a shield. So it's supposed to be 2 rolls. An easy way to do it is just have it be 1 roll, and if it's low enough to proc the failure from one piece, it fails. I've run across several DMs that combine the armor, the spell failure chance of the armor with that of the shield. So someone trying to run around with half plate on and use a tower shield while casting spells has a 90% chance of failure, which means all of their like 1 out of every 10 spells actually goes through. And he did that to stop magic users from trying to just run around with a bunch of armor and stuff on. It's like you're not supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to be focusing on spells, and there are spells to help your AC. So it's like, don't hinder yourself. There is several extras. Armor spikes, locked gauntlets, and spiked shield spikes. And what those pretty much do, let me actually, yeah, boom, is they give you somewhat benefits, like the armor spikes. Yeah, if you are not proficient with them, you take a -4 penalty on grapple checks. But you do extra piercing damage, which we have to go to weapons for it. And I think it's like considered simple of things, but it pretty much means you get to grab someone and you're stabbing them on their spikes, or if someone's trying to grab you, it's like spikes. Yay, go ahead, stab yourself. The long gauntlet is pretty much I'm gonna lock it, and whatever's in my hand practically is not coming out, because you get a huge whopping +10 on any roll made to keep from being disarmed. It's to lock a gauntlet or attempt or attaching a weapon to a lock gauntlet. It's a 4-round action that does provoke attacks from opportunity, so it takes you time to lock it, but pretty much means, unless they chop off your arm or get really, really good, you're not getting rid of that weapon. Because again, a +10 to keeping it is pretty up there. Shield spikes, similar to the armored spikes, when you do your shield bash, you do piercing damage. So you can just like, piercing. There's normally you have to have a bunch of different things in order to properly shield bash, but this lets you just smack person piercing, smack person piercing. So it does help you out there. And you can see what a lot of the armor looks like. Locked gauntlet, buckler, spiked wooden shield, large metal shield. No, those spikes there don't actually let you actually use it for combat. It's just how it looks. Tower shield. Up close look of chainmail, chain shirt. Up close look of scale mail. So you actually know how it's supposed to look. What is actually covered by the body. That's normal. That's studded for leather. There's rules for masterwork, but you're spending additional 150 gold pieces to have it, even though it does help out a lot by lessening the armor check penalty by 1, which, if you can afford it, that will help some of these here. There is donning armor and removing it. Shields move action. Can't hastily do it. As hastily as trying to do as fast as possible. Removing move action. Padded leather, hide, stud leather, or chain shirt. Takes 10 rounds to put it on. 10 rounds to take it off. 5 rounds to hastily don it, but there's penalties for hastily donning it. For instance, this column tells you how long it takes to put on the armor in a hurry. Armor check penalties and armor bonuses for hastily donned armor are each 1 point worse than normal, which means if you hastily don padded armor, you pretty much get rid of the +1 to there, and you go from a 0 to a -1 on your armor check penalty. So certain armors you don't want to hastily put on, but because you can technically sleep in light armor, unless you took it off for some reason, you don't have to worry about hastily doing it. A lot of your medium armors and some of your heavy armors take a lot longer because scale mail, chain mail, breastplate, banded mail, or split mail, 4 minutes to put it on, a minute if you're hastily doing it, and a minute to remove. Half plate or full plate is 4 minutes to put on, 4 minutes to hastily don, 1 die 4 plus 1 minutes to remove. And if you notice that some of these have a 1 while some of these have a 2. And that's important. 1. If a character has some help, cut this time in half. A single character donning nothing else can help 1 or 2 adjacent creatures. 2 characters can't help each other don armor at the same time. So when it comes to 1, and it also applies to removing armor. So a lot of these breastplate can be cut down to 2 minutes or 5 rounds to remove. A lot of these here like your chain shirt, style leather, can be reduced to 5 rounds to remove. Half plate or full plate, if you're donning hastily, time can be cut in half, or removing, time to be cut in half. 2 is important. The wearer must have help donning this armor. Without help, it can't be donned. It can only be donned hastily, which pretty much means you're kind of boned. So the best 2 heavy armors, half plate and full plate. Armor check penalty gets worse. Bonus gets worse. So it's kind of important to do it. Unusual armors for creatures. If you're small armor, the price and weight does get cut down because it weighs less and costs less. The bigger creatures, it gets even more outrageously expensive. And some of the stuff for non-humanoid. Do it. And when it says non-humanoid, there's 2 ways to look at it. It's either A, the creature typing, or B, the general shape of the creature. So it's pretty important to make that distinction. But generally, the cost for most players is because you're going to be a smaller, medium-sized creature. The cost doesn't change, the weight does. So smaller creatures, the armor only weighs half as much. So like a small suit of full plate, instead of weighing 50 pounds, it only weighs 25 pounds. So it's like, yay. But it has all the same abilities, all the same bonuses and stuff, and same price. But if you're a tiny creature, the cost drops from 1,500 to 750, and it's only 1/10 of the weight. So that's like, what, 5 pounds? Yeah. So it weighs drastically less, but it has all the same bonuses. It just costs less, weighs less. But if you are a large-sized creature, you double both of those. So even cheap armor, such as like padded, becomes not so cheap, even though 10 gold pieces, you can afford 10 gold pieces. But if you're trying to afford, let's say, a full plate, you're spending $3,000 just to be able to have that full plate, and it's 100 pounds of your weight. And that's if you are a humanoid shape. If you're a non-humanoid shape, like one of my favorite variant races are a beetle person. They're large size and they're beetle person. So they're, even though technically you can say them humanoid, they're not humanoid shape. They have an extra pair of small arms. That they're not necessarily humanoid. So the weight gets doubled, but the cost gets quadrupled. So you're spending so they would have to spend $6,000 just to wear full plate. And that's because the full plate is taking into account, it's made in such a way to take into account not only the larger size, but all of the other anatomy parts it needs to take advantage of. Yeah, so it's like, shame on you if you're a colossal sized creature, especially if you are a non-humanoid colossal sized creature, because those are huge times. Thing to note about armor is when you're buying your equipment, even though weapons and armor come first, my rule of thumb is look at the general equipment you want. While it's a DM having a list with all the prices on it for you, go, this is what I recommend you buy. Or if you nitpick it, your, just like with weapons, your armor can easily eat most of your budget. There's been multiple scenarios where I ran games where a party member had just a sword and armor because they bought the most expensive armor they could, and they bought a fancy sword, so they're sitting there looking cool, but they don't have any other equipment, so they're leeching off the party in order to get any of that done, which isn't necessarily a bad idea, but it becomes a horrible idea when the rest of the party's like, no, we're not buying extra stuff because you didn't budget it. Because you have to remember, unless your backstories have everyone coming in already together as a group, you can't base what you're getting off of anyone else because your character has no idea what they have, or the fact that they have no inclination to give you or share anything with you because they're just going to meet you. So you may want, like, I want to wear a split mail. It's like, that's 200 gold pieces, and if you get lucky and have 200 gold pieces to spend, you're not really getting much of anything else. So it falls into think before acting, look at what everything you have, decide what you can live without. This armor is a big thing, so what can you live without? Because there's always going to be a chance where you can later on upgrade armor to a heavier pair or a pair with a slightly better statistics. Not to mention the fact that you could end up getting real lucky in one of the first big loot the party get. You may end up getting a piece of armor that you fall in love with. This all comes to luck of the die rolls and stuff like that. So it's a big thing of don't spend all your money on armor, and just make sure you can actually utilize it. Proficiency is important. Dex bonus is important with Plasma. Weight is important. And if you're trying not to be slow, then make sure that you're using armor that's not slowing you down. Not to mention the fact that pay attention to scenarios, because there's several scenarios where wearing certain armors may be more beneficial. For instance, if the DM reveals that the party's going to be going into an area with high amount of heat and or high amounts of gold, pay attention to what armor you're wearing, because some armor, you get penalties to those environments, while other ones give you bonuses. Work with your DM, not against him. And remember to try to have fun with it. Don't stress it, because if you can't afford the heavier armor, that's at the beginning. You're eventually going to get to the point where you can. That being said, I would like to thank everyone for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week as we dive into general equipment. Dun dun.